The text came through at 11:40 p.m., cutting through the silence of my room like a knife. Come get it. I won't leave it out. Attached was a photo of my jacket draped over a chair, the old denim frayed at the cuffs, the color faded from countless washes. A chill ran down my spine, not from the late-night cold but from the thought of her. Jenna, my friend's older sister, was 25, 3 years older than me, and a vision of what I wanted to be. Confident, self-assured, with an air of mystery that drew me in like a moth to a flame. I'm Alex Morrison, 22, a barista by day, a college student by night, and tonight I felt a mix of anticipation and dread as I considered the impending encounter. It wasn't just about the jacket. It was about what it represented, the boundaries that had always kept us apart. I could feel the weight of that line shifting, like the tide pulling away from the shore, leaving me exposed. The night was quiet as I parked in front of Jenna's house, the kind of silence that makes you acutely aware of every sound. The distant hum of traffic, the rustling of leaves in the wind. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. My heart raced as I stepped out of the car and walked up the cracked concrete path leading to her front door. I knocked, the sound echoing through the stillness. I half expected her to answer in her usual casual style, but instead, the door opened slowly, revealing her silhouette framed against the dim light of the living room. "Hey!" she said, her voice a soft caress against the night air. "Hey!" I replied, trying to sound nonchalant as I stepped inside. Jenna wore a robe that hung loosely around her, the fabric slipping slightly off her shoulder. Her damp hair fell in messy waves around her face, droplets glistening like diamonds in the muted light. She looked comfortable, yet there was an intensity in her gaze that made me acutely aware of how the air shifted around us. "Your jacket," she said, gesturing toward the chair where it lay. The distance between us felt charged, electric. It was as if the jacket was a barrier, a line drawn in the sand, and I could feel the pull of her eyes as I approached. "Thanks," I muttered, stepping forward, but she held up a hand. "Take it," she urged, her voice low, playful. "It's just there. You can get it yourself." I paused, my hand hovering over the jacket. Did she really want me to? Or was this some kind of test? I glanced up at her, and the look in her eyes sent a shiver down my spine. Curiosity mixed with something deeper, something that felt like an invitation. "Jenna," I started, unsure of how to navigate this sudden shift in our dynamic. "Just take it." Her tone was firm, but her eyes danced with mischief. With a mixture of hesitation and resolve, I took a step closer, the space between us shrinking. I reached for the jacket, but as I leaned forward, I caught a glimpse of her smile. A small, knowing smirk that made my pulse quicken. "Closer," she said, tilting her head slightly, a challenge lacing her voice. "You're almost there." I swallowed hard, the heat rising in my cheeks. The air felt thick, charged with an unspoken tension. I could feel her gaze on me, weighing my every move, and as I grasped the jacket, I realized I had crossed a line I didn't even know existed. "Got it?" I said, my voice barely above a whisper, but the moment felt suspended, electrified. "Good," she replied, her smile widening, revealing a streak of something playful, something dangerous. "Now you can go." I straightened up, jacket in hand, but I didn't want to leave. There was something about this moment, about her, that drew me in, and I could feel the gravity of the situation pulling me back. "Are you busy?" I asked, the words tumbling out before I could think. It was reckless, but there was a part of me that wanted to linger, to see how far we could push this boundary. "No," she said, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Not really. Just working on some stuff." "Can I stay for a bit?" The question hung in the air, heavy and charged. There was a pause, a beat where I felt the world fall away, and then she nodded, a small, almost imperceptible movement that sent a thrill through me. "Sure, come on in." I stepped further into her room, the familiar scent of lavender and something sweet wrapping around me, pulling me deeper into her space. The desk was cluttered with papers, books, and a laptop, but it felt intimate, personal. It was a glimpse into her world, and I was both a guest and an intruder. "Nice place," I said, trying to fill the silence that settled between us. "Thanks," she replied, folding her legs beneath her as she settled back into her chair. "I'm trying to get organized. But you know how it is." "Yeah, I get it." Our eyes met again, and I could feel that electric tension crackling in the space between us. "What's going on with you?" she asked, breaking the silence. "School? Work? Just the usual grind," I said, shrugging. "Nothing too exciting. Sometimes boring is good," she said, her gaze unwavering, and I could feel the weight of her words sinking in. There was a deeper conversation lurking beneath the surface, an unspoken understanding wrapped in layers of hesitation and desire. "Do you ever feel like you're just waiting for something to happen?" I asked, surprising myself with the vulnerability of the question. She considered this, her expression thoughtful. "Yeah, sometimes. It's like you know there's more out there, but you're stuck in one place, you know?" I nodded, feeling the resonance of her words in my chest. "It's hard to break out of that. Maybe you just need a push," she said, her eyes gleaming with something I couldn't quite decipher. "A push," I echoed, my heart racing. "Yeah," she said slowly, leaning forward slightly, drawing me in. "Sometimes you just need to take that first step, even if it's scary." The air felt thick with possibility, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were teetering on the edge of something profound. I was both terrified and exhilarated, caught in the delicate dance of uncertainty that hung in the air between us. "Are you saying I should take risks?" I asked, my voice low, almost conspiratorial. "Maybe," she replied, her gaze steady. "What's the worst that could happen?" The question hung there, heavy with implication. I could feel the tension shift, the air crackling around us, and I knew there was something more at stake than just my jacket. "I guess I'm just afraid of crossing the line," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "Lines can be crossed," she said, her tone softening. "Sometimes it's worth it." My heart raced, the weight of her words settling deep within me. There was a risk in this conversation, a vulnerability that felt both terrifying and exhilarating. "Have you ever crossed a line?" I asked, the question slipping out before I could stop myself. Her gaze flickered for a moment, a shadow of something crossing her features before she replied. "Yeah, I have. And sometimes it's the best thing I ever did." "Really?" I asked, surprised. "Yeah," she said, her smile fading slightly. "But it can also lead to trouble." "Trouble?" I echoed, my voice low, almost afraid to tread further. "Yeah," she said, her tone serious now. "Sometimes when you cross a line, you risk losing everything. Friends, family, everything you thought you knew." I felt a chill at her words, as if she were pulling back the curtain on a truth I wasn't ready to face. "What happened?" She paused, her eyes distant as if she were recalling a memory just out of reach. "Let's just say, sometimes you have to be careful about which lines you choose to cross." The weight of her words hung in the air, a reminder of the stakes involved. I swallowed hard, feeling the gravity of the moment settle around us. There was a fragile intimacy in her gaze, a connection that sent my heart racing. "Do you think it's worth it?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Her eyes searched mine, and for a moment, I felt like we were suspended in time, the world around us fading into nothingness. "Sometimes, yes, but it depends on what you're willing to risk." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her gaze on me, the unspoken challenge lingering in the air. I had always admired her bravery, her willingness to embrace the unknown. But now, standing on the precipice of that unknown myself, fear bubbled up inside me. "What if I lose everything?" I asked, my voice shaking slightly. Then maybe it wasn't worth keeping in the first place, she said softly, her eyes never leaving mine. There was a vulnerability in her words, a truth that resonated deeply within me. I felt the walls I had built around myself begin to crumble, the fear of losing everything overshadowed by the pull of something greater, a desire to connect, to leap into the unknown. I don't know if I'm ready for that, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. Ready or not, sometimes you have to take the leap, she replied, her tone gentle yet firm. Silence enveloped us, thick with unspoken thoughts and emotions. The world outside faded into a distant hum, leaving just the two of us in this fragile moment. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, the tension between us palpable. I wanted to reach out, to close the distance, but fear held me back, a tether binding me to the safety of the familiar. Maybe I'll take a small leap, I said, the words tumbling out before I could think. She raised an eyebrow, a spark of curiosity igniting in her gaze. What do you mean? I mean, maybe I'll start by just being honest, I said, my voice steadying as I found my footing. About how I feel. Her expression shifted, her eyes widening slightly as the weight of my words settled between us. How you feel? About you, I clarified, my heart racing. About this, whatever this is. For a moment, time seemed to stand still, and I could see the flicker of surprise in her eyes, followed by something softer, more vulnerable. Alex, Jenna, I know it's complicated, I interrupted, my voice shaking slightly, but I can't pretend anymore. There's something about you that draws me in, something I can't ignore. Her gaze softened, and I could see the walls she had built around herself begin to crack. I didn't know you felt that way, she said softly. Maybe I should have said something sooner, I said, my heart racing. But I was afraid of losing what we had. Sometimes what we have isn't enough, she replied, her voice low and thoughtful. There was a vulnerability in her words that struck a chord deep within me. I could feel the weight of our shared experiences, the unspoken connection that had always lingered just beneath the surface. What if we lose everything? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Then maybe we'll find something better, she replied, her eyes searching mine. There was a flicker of hope in her gaze, and in that moment, I felt a shift in the air around us, a sense of possibility blooming in the space between us. I took a step closer, the distance between us shrinking as I reached for her hand, our fingers brushing against each other. Alex, she said, her voice a mix of caution and something deeper. Just give me a chance, I murmured, my heart racing as I held her gaze. Let's see where this takes us. A moment passed, the weight of her decision hanging in the air. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, the uncertainty swirling around us like a storm. Finally, she nodded, a small, tentative smile breaking across her face. Okay, let's see where this goes. In that moment, I felt the weight of the world lift off my shoulders, the fear of losing everything overshadowed by the promise of something new. I didn't know where this would lead, but as I stood there, hand in hand with Jenna, I realized that sometimes the greatest leap of faith is the one that brings us closer to the people who matter most. The lines had blurred, and while I knew there were risks ahead, there was also the thrill of the unknown waiting just beyond the horizon. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of hope blossoming within me, a quiet understanding that, together, we could navigate whatever came next.